to the latest episode of the Claws Corner. Today's guest is a guitarist, singer, and pianist. He got to start at the age of 3 playing Beethoven on the piano. At age 11, he heard the song Revelation Mother Earth featuring guitarist Randy Rhoads, which forever changed his life. He picked up a guitar, became self-taught, and has not looked back since. His past bands include Rat and Poison, an 80s tribute, Head Games, which is a Foreigner tribute band, and now is currently playing with the legendary Connecticut power metal band Sacred Oath, Rock of Ages, which is a Def Leppard tribute band, Ozzy America, and Elm City Heartbreakers, which features powerful original music as well as some classic covers. His influences include Randy Rhoads, Meatloaf, Beethoven, Bach, Prince, Elton John, Freddie Mercury, Jim Morrison, Pavarotti, Eddie Van Halen, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Richie Blackmore. Please welcome the rock prince himself, Damiano Christian, to the Claws Corner. How are you?
Good, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing very well. So glad to have you on the show. I met you several years ago when I interviewed one of the bands that you're in, one of the many bands you're in, Sacred Oath. And and I said I wanted the interview I was on a show that was only a half hour long, so there really wasn't much to talk about. But now we have all the time in the world, and doing the research on you, we're gonna need all the time because you have done a lot. I was very impressed. So I want to start off with the last time I saw you. It was November 20th at Crystal Bees in Southington. You were playing with two bands. Yep. You were playing with Elm City Heartbreakers, which I mentioned is your original band. You play some great covers. I walked in, I got in a little bit late, and I said, wait, is that autograph? Wait, is that Joan Jett? And then all of a sudden you kick into an original. I said, these guys are great. Then,
thank you.
Yeah, oh, you're welcome. Then that was the opening band for the headlining band, which you were also in. It was called Rock of Ages, and they're a Def Leppard tribute band.
Yeah, and I was gonna actually, it's funny you went down the list of the bands because I was gonna say there's been some changes since that show you were at.
Already? That was only 2 months ago or 3 months ago.
Yeah, I know. A lot can happen in 2 months, band world wise.
That is very true. Let's talk about it. So what's changed since then?
So I ended up actually, what happened was Rock of Ages folded after that show. The guy who was running it, the bass player, had decided that he had just been doing it for too long. They had been, the band had been gigging for probably 7 years, I want to say. And at the time, he was just, he had just lost his stepfather, and he wanted to spend more time with his kid and his girlfriend. So we didn't really have any shows booked for this coming year, 2022. So he decided that after that show, we were gonna, he was gonna fold it. He started the thing, so he might as well end it. And we were all kind of just, guns for hire with that band. It was a way for us to get out there and, get the experience of playing bigger venues than what we were used to. We started off playing places like Crystal Bees and, Cook's Corner Cafe there down in, what was that?
Naugatuck.
Yeah, and then Mags, which used to be American Pie and Pub in Seymour. We went from doing stuff like that to these, 2,000 to 3,000 seat theaters in Upper New England with Rock of Ages. So it became a very strenuous band too at the same time because it was us playing with 2 other tributes. There was a standard that had to be met with every show, so it was kind of like, the thumb was on your neck the whole time you were playing.
What kind of standards?
So there was a lot going into production. Where we had to have like our own video wall ready to go with, our Def Leppard show, because that's what the other bands were doing. They were banking a lot of this off of the production value of the show. So bands were coming out with video walls, timed like 60 to 90 second video and audio intros that would like flash pictures of the band they were tributing and little audio clips and sound bites that, make you feel like you're actually back in time seeing the band again. So there was a lot of brain work that had to go into putting a show together, like an actual package. Like, this is what we're going to present to people that are paying, you know, $50, $60 a ticket. And some of these venues were even offering like VIP group packages. And I'm like, we're not even the real band. Why the hell they want to meet us for?
How much
You
for a
know,
meet
like,
and greet?
yeah, I'm like, I'm sitting here for a meet and greet tributing Def Leppard, and I'm not actually them. So, I mean, if it makes their day, you know, all power to them. But I don't know. It had a there was a lot that went into it. A show like that.
Yeah.
So we had done that production for God. We started gaining the momentum before the pandemic. We had done one of these big theater shows up in Worcester, Mass at the Hanover Theater. It was a great show. And then a week later, bam, the whole world shuts down. We start back up again Memorial Day weekend of this past year with our first gig in this production called the Titans of 80s Rock Tribute. And we were doing Bank of New Hampshire Pavilion up in, oh, where is that? I think it was up on Lake Winnipesaukee, and they were telling us it holds 3,000 to 4,000 people, and it's this huge, like, almost dome amphitheater looking place, and it's just seats that go all the way back, and then there's lawn seats like up in Hartford there.
Yeah.
So there was they were expecting a lot out of us besides just showing up and playing. It was like, okay, you need to have, you know, all this other production stuff to go along with it. And so after Crystal Bees, we ended up folding the band. I'm still doing Elm City Heartbreakers, which we're playing this Saturday, opening for none other than Jimmy Bell.
Oh yeah, join forces. I think he's with a Deep Purple band now.
Yeah, he's playing with Beyond Purple, and he tours with Autograph.
Yep.
So I'm really excited to do the gig. He's been like one of my main local guitar heroes growing up. I mean, you can see all the posters behind me somewhere in here. I've had his poster on my wall since I was like 10 years old because my dad went to go see him at Bleachers in Bristol and brought home a signed poster that Jimmy addressed to me. And I was a kid. I didn't know who he was at the time. I was 10 and I hadn't even started playing guitar yet. So I'm looking at this poster. I'm like, okay, who's Jimmy Bell at the time? And then as I grew up, you know, I start seeing on Facebook all the stuff he had done, House of Lords, playing, you know, the audition for Ozzy Osbourne against Zakk Wylde. And
from what I heard, I think it was between him and Zakk got it. I heard it was that close.
Yep. Yeah, there's been videos where Jimmy talks about it and how he got to sit down with Zakk and share a couple drinks with him in the hotel room and just sit there and play guitar, the two of them. You know, the night, I guess it was the night after Jimmy's audition on stage. So I'm really excited for it. And we'll be playing a lot of our original music this time, less on the covers. So we're going to be doing more originals this time because we've had a lot more time to work on music since the Crystal Bees show back in what was that now, November?
Well, I have to say I know they're older songs, but I was jamming out to your EP the last couple days. Overture, The Devil Must Have Done It.
Yeah, that God, I was, oh boy, 15 or 16 when I did those. There was not a lot of thought put into those. It was kind of just,
for a 15-year-old, there's still great. Even for a 25 or 30-year-old, there's still great rocking songs. Straight Between the Eyes. That I enjoyed every song I heard. And then you did the covers, which I want to talk about later because I saw the video for the cover song. I don't want to talk about that yet, but I want to say one thing. As a fan of tribute bands, this is what I like. I like bands that put a lot of work, as you were mentioning, into, instead of the four guys who are fans just get up there in jeans. I like bands like that you described, and I'll give you an example. There's a Van Halen tribute band called Completely Unchained. They look the part,
Yeah.
they act the part, they are Van Halen. They're Van Halen in their prime. And that's why I love watching bands. You know, I've seen you a couple times, I've seen them, and I love the fact when the band puts the thought into it and makes it more of an event, like you're there seeing the original band and you're seeing them in their prime. So I think that it may be a lot of work and a lot more money, but to the people out there, it's definitely worth it.
No, it totally is. And I was gonna say then that's you totally got to come see my new Ozzy tribute because I'm now in a different Ozzy project called Ozzmosis out of Massachusetts.
I just did
And
this
our
intro
show-
last night. So Ozzy America and Rock and Bass. Wow,
Yeah, no, those both got the cut.
that's funny. So
But
Ozzmosis.
no, yeah, no, this band is dude, this band's awesome. The singer, he's got the Ozzy look and the voice down. And I'm still doing the Randy thing with the outfit and all the guitars, the white Marshalls behind me. Our drummer actually has, you know, a black afro like Tommy Aldridge and sits there in a white freaking wife beater with white pants, and he looks a lot like Tom. Dude, you'd be surprised. I look at some of the pictures and I'm like, wow, he's got a really good resemblance to Tommy. If you go on our Facebook page, the Ozzmosis, there's 2 Ozzmosis tribute bands, surprisingly, one out of New York and one out of Mass. So ours, you'll see on our promo video, he's got this look on his face, just like Tommy Aldridge does in all the photos with the sneer on his face. So we do the same thing with our show, but with Ozzy, that like Completely Unchained does with Van Halen, where we come out dressed like Ozzy and Randy did, you know, in 1981, 82. And we play all of like Blizzard of Oz front to back, all of Diary of a Madman front to back. And then we do some Jake stuff, some Zach stuff, and some Black Sabbath stuff to add extra time to the show.
You know what I like? The music scene in Connecticut, I think, is pretty small, and a lot of the other musicians interact with other bands. You might know them, you might not. I'm friends with Christian Opus Lawrence, and he's in a band called Earth.
I know Opus.
Oh, yeah.
No, I've played his Opus Bash before years ago.
Oh,
like
really?
When I had done that whole, you know, EP you had mentioned listening to,
Yeah.
they when they would do his Opus Blizzard Bash, they would have you know, lesser known bands at the lily pad stage upstairs. So I was playing up there the year I did it. And God, I can't remember what year it was, but we were under Year One Productions with Mike Z.
Yep.
So that's how, you know, he was like, oh, you guys want to play the Opus Bash? We'll put you on the lily pad stage upstairs. They give us our own tickets to sell with our names on them and stuff. So yeah, no, I know Opus. He's I've gone and seen Earth a bunch of times too. His guitar player is actually my best friend, Jesse, who was in Rock
Jesse
of
Neer.
Ages. Yeah, he was the other guitar player there in Rock of Ages that night. So that's how I know Opus as well.
It's funny, like as I mentioned, it's so funny how everybody's connected, because back in when I was your age, I was a singer in a metal band, and my band used to play with Opus's band and Mike Z's band. Because originally he was in Screecher, then he was in Radium, which I'm sure you know. This was back in '88, and then Opus was in a band called Sapphire and Violent Industry, and then he formed Gargantuan Soul. So I sort of left the band scene, went into radio, and now I'm here. But yeah, I've known those guys since the '80s. Mike Z used to be a DJ at WNHU, and he interviewed me when I was in a band. That's how I became friends with him.
Wow. So the way I met Mike Z was apparently he somehow either went to school or grew up with my dad and my dad's brother.
Oh.
And he had seen my last name on Facebook, which isn't Christian, it's Scarfy. And he remembered it from when he was a kid, because apparently he used to hang out at my grandmother's house all the time with my dad and his brother. So that's how I met Mike, because I got a message from him saying, hey, I know your dad, Fred. I have a record label, Year One Productions. I've seen some of your music that, you know, you've been writing, because I was posting like videos of us playing the stuff live. It hadn't been recorded or anything yet. So he took an interest in the original stuff I was doing. And that's how that all started, was just because he had remembered my dad from when he was a little kid.
That's funny. Yeah, he's a great guy. They all were, and I've known them for years, and I'm so happy to see them still playing music after all these
Yeah.
years, still being successful. And it's great. But I want to get back to you because, as I mentioned, you started playing piano at age 3, like a young Mozart.
Yeah.
What was this something that your parents sort of pushed you into and said, "Oh, you should try piano"? Because I mean, at age 3, did you just walk up to a piano and start playing it and say, "Yeah, this sounds interesting"?
So from what I am told, because I'm I couldn't remember what happened when I was 3, but what I'm told by my parents is that they stuck me on a piano when I was 3 before they ever had a mattress to sleep on, because we were moving from Meriden to Middletown, and they just had the mattress. They didn't even have like a box spring or anything else. So they got the piano, and my mother had also mentioned that she's a big fan of Prince. So she mentions this interview where they asked him how he learned to play all the instruments that he played on all his records, because he would go from guitar to bass to drums and just play every instrument on all of his albums. And he said it was because he started on piano first and got his foundation with the piano. So my mother just took that and was like, okay, I'm going to put you on the piano and we'll see what happens. So I started on the piano when I was 3 at the Hartford Conservatory in Hartford, which is long gone now. And it had been there for years. I think they established it in like the 40s or 50s back in Connecticut here. So started at 3.
I'm surprised they even took people that young. At age 3, they were
Yeah,
having
I
people.
know. And
That's interesting.
yeah, I had started under a woman from China named Zena Chen, and I had already been able to hear music and like pluck it out on the piano. So she saw that, and they, made an exception for me, because they were like, okay, well, he obviously has a sense for it. The other thing too was, before the whole piano incident and being stuck on the piano, my mom has this newspaper clipping and it's got a picture of me and on it, and I can't remember if it was either at, what's the park there in Hartford,
Bushnell?
Elizabeth.
Bushnell.
Yeah, the Bushnell. Yeah. They were doing some like outdoor opera festival there with the New England Philharmonic as the orchestra, apparently, according to the newspaper article.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of me up at the front barricade in a tux. I'm like 3 years old, and I'm like waving my arms up and down like I'm conducting march. Mind you, Rich, I had never seen this newspaper article until about maybe 2 years ago. I had no idea that it had ever happened. And my mother tells me about this. I'm like, okay, well, if there's a picture of it, then it must have actually happened, and this explains it all.
That's
So
funny.
I'll find it later and send you a picture of it, but she has the newspaper. She saved it this whole time. So that's where she took, okay, he must have a thing for music. Let's start him on the piano and see where he takes it from there. And I ended up here now. So
yeah. Well, we're gonna get to that, but I want to say what's impressive about your piano work is that I watched some of your videos and you play the whole set list of Liberace. Nobody does that. I love that. I remember seeing him in the 70s and thought he is a great entertainer. He's a great pianist. And the fact that you're in your early 20s, I think, that appreciates that kind of music, plays it, and keeping it alive. That's really what's most impressive to me. And I don't know if you know this story, but I read the biography of Mozart and the story with him, and you're gonna love this because hopefully, well, he died a little too young. Hopefully, he lasts a little bit longer. But with
Yeah.
him, his sister was supposed to be the prodigy. His father was gonna take. Oh, so you know the story. I'll let my viewers know. He was gonna take her on tour, and then little Wolfie Mozart steps up. He can barely reach up to the piano, starts playing at age 3, and they're like, "Hey, he's even better than the sister." They brought him on tour all over the world. So you're in good company.
Thank you.
But while you were there at the Hartford Conservatory, you were a 2-time Baldwin Scholarship winner, as well as a 2nd and 3rd place winner in the Young Artist Piano Competition for 2007 and 2009. So you obviously made a mark there.
Yeah. All I remember with that was my teacher at the time. I had switched teachers after 2 years. My first teacher moved to the West Coast. So this new teacher now from Taiwan came in, and the whole teaching staff at that school was predominantly Asian. All the vocal teachers were, so they were getting in a lot of very top-notch instructors for classical piano. It was predominantly a classical music school with a jazz program attached to it.
Yeah.
So my teacher at the time, she encouraged the competition side of it after 5 or 6 years of training me. She saw that I was really serious about it. I was at that time, when I won those, I was already probably practicing an hour and a half, 2 hours a day after school. I'd sit at my piano. I'd have all my sheet music out on the piano, because that was the only thing I did. I didn't do anything else besides sit at my piano or play my video game. So, and most of the time it was playing my piano. So she encouraged that, and then I started being submitted for competitions they would do in Springfield for kids like ages, 9 to 10 and 11, 12, and 13. And these were outside of the school scholarships that you mentioned, which were the Baldwin ones. I also applied for those because those guaranteed me a full tuition scholarship the whole year I took lessons there. But I had to audition for the scholarship every year against my teacher's other students. Luckily, I was the only student of hers that was in that age group that actually took the instrument seriously the way I was, because I always remember there was a kid my age that was the lesson before me, and I would always be waiting outside and listening into his lesson. And I think we had been playing around the same amount of time, and he had just, I don't know, it was just kind of more a hobby to him. He didn't really take it seriously. And then I'm in there like, okay, I got this competition coming up in a month. And then I got this audition for the scholarship 2 weeks after that. And then she's got me in a recital another 3 weeks after that for the spring performance. And I'm just like, okay, I'm like 9 years old. Let's get this done. And you know what? I'm having fun. I'm doing something I enjoy. So that's where the whole awards and the competitions and the scholarships came from, out of that school.
Kids at your age, even at 40, don't have that kind of discipline. So the fact that you would just play an hour and a half, 2 hours every single day at age 9 shows that you were born to play music. It's obvious.
No, I mean, well, I never played sports. I never really watched sports. My parents never had sports playing in the house. The only thing that ever played in the house that was consistent and slightly involved with sports was Sunday NASCAR that my dad's been watching every year since he was a kid.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing in the house that I've heard in relation to sports growing up. So I was mostly always in front of a piano, in front of music. My dad's brother's a guitar player. Their grandfather played guitar and mandolin from Sicily. And it's always just been arts around here. So
Well, at age 8, you started taking singing lessons. Is that correct? Now, what kind of singing lessons did you take? Was it more operatic, more classically trained?
So it was at Hartford Conservatory, and it was with the male vocal instructor there from China. His name, what was his name? Chailun Yahweh. And he taught opera, classical vocal instruction, and he didn't take students until the age of 14. But he knew my piano instructor. They worked together outside of the school on, projects and stuff and concerts they've held, for their private students and whatnot. She was an accompanist for a few of his recitals when he would need a pianist to play for his vocal students. And he knew I was taking lessons at the school, and I always did the recitals every semester and whatnot. So he knew I was serious about it, and that I wasn't going to just come in and waste his time, some little 8-year-old saying he wants to sing. So, and then when my mother told him what I was interested in at the time too, like Pavarotti and Andrea Bocelli, Mario Lanza, and who else that I'm like forgetting off the top of my head, but guys like that who mainly sang strictly like old country Italian music, that kind of stuff. So the stuff that you would hear playing on the radio in the background of The Godfather, that kind of.
Yeah.
So all he sang was opera. That the teacher I ended up training under, he had performed at the Metropolitan Opera numerous times in New York City.
Oh.
He was from China. And I ended up training under him till I was 14 or 15, and then I started getting into rock and roll and metal, and that wasn't his speed. I could tell.
That's a little bit of a departure from Pavarotti.
And it's not everyone's speed, and so it wasn't for him. And then I kind of phased out of the opera thing. I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I already know how to sing now from taking vocal lessons. So why don't I apply that to try and sing all this rock stuff? Because I was starting to listen to bands like Deep Purple, and I was in love with Ian Gillan and Freddie Mercury from Queen. And then distinctively Miljenko Matijevic from Steelheart was another big one that I was like, wow, you don't hear anyone sing like that. Just that dude came out of nowhere and blew a door open. And I don't think anyone's really male vocal wise matched a voice as powerful as that with rock. But
Great, yeah. No, I gotta say, really, before we move on to the metal, which is going to be next, when I really gained respect for Pavarotti was when Ron Howard came out with a documentary a couple of years ago, and I got to see that guy was not only an extreme talent, but he was hilarious. I think his personality was even bigger than his talent, and I think that's what makes him even greater. And I enjoyed that, and it made me want to download some of his music and say, you know what, I really do appreciate this now. I have a better appreciation of that, just watching that and getting to know him, the person, than I did before, because my tastes are very eclectic. I can go from Madonna to King Diamond to Slayer to ABBA. So my tastes are, I can go to Hank Williams Jr., to Johnny Cash. I mean, they're all over the Bach, Mozart, Beethoven. I love all that too. And I always laugh when people say, oh, classical music's boring. Watch any movie without music and tell me how boring classical music is. And they shut right up.
I know. Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of movie scores that just use classical music to make a film not seem like there's just dead air.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
if you ever watched a movie without any kind of music at all, then you realize, okay, classical music is pretty important. It's like a
Oh
piece of
yeah. Oh yeah. It's a big part of everyday culture too. I mean, you hear it everywhere, no matter what. So
age 11. This is when history happened. You heard Revelation Mother Earth by Ozzy Osbourne featuring guitarist Randy Rhoads. Tell me about that experience.
um that was kind of just a let's try this out and see what happens kind of moment where I was being exposed to a lot of my dad's, music library, which included a lot of bands like Rainbow, Ozzy, Deep Purple, Yngwie Malmsteen, um, and I was listening constantly to music on the way to school, on the way home to school, whenever I was just bored, And this is when we were transitioning from little portable CD players with headphones you would bring on the bus to now the first generation iPod Touch. And these, plug-in headphones and this little, touch screen, and you can download an app on it now and play games. And now look at what it's turned into.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, you're gonna laugh at this. I'm obviously very much older than you, but I started off with an 8-track boombox. I'd walk around the 8-track.
Yeah, there you go.
UFO, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest.
Yeah.
Yeah, things have definitely changed since then.
I know. I mean, it's funny looking back on that now because I sit here and I'm like, wow, you never would have thought it would have taken off and turned into what it's turned into now. When it started from that with that little iPod Touch, and now you see what that company's turned into, and the things we have nowadays with phones, and now you can interlink phones to your gear with this stuff nowadays. And so, but yeah, I'm sitting there on the bus, and God, I was listening to a lot of Yngwie and Rainbow and AC/DC. And then I went to Ozzy. I remember specifically Ozzy. And I started seeing the songs. And I'm like, I'm going to just pick one today and let's just listen to it and see what happens. And the one you mentioned is the one that ended up being picked. And it
Great
got
song.
to the guitar. Yeah. And it got to the guitar solo at the very end, where it picks up speed right before Steal Away the Night. And I was just, it was a lot different than what I heard from Yngwie, Rainbow, AC/DC. I was like, wow, that actually like hit a nerve inside. Like, what is that? And so on the title of the song, it said Randy's name on it, and then it all clicked in my head because growing up, my dad had this magazine, and it was a Randy Rhoads magazine. I wonder if I have it in here. Give me 1 second. It's
Back after this short commercial break.
Yes, found it.
And we found it. We're coming back here with Damiano Christian right here in the Claws corner.
This is the Guitar Legends magazine with Randy on the front of it.
You know what I'm impressed with? How old is that? Because that is in excellent shape.
Oh my God, I don't.
It has to be from the 80s.
2008 is the
2008. Well, that's still
yeah.
That's impressive. That's in that good of quality, because I know I have magazines from last week that they could look like they're garbage. So
I have this guitar, not this guitar. I'm sorry, I'm thinking guitars now because it said Guitar Legend on it. I was gonna say I have this magazine to thank for knowing how to play guitar, because this was like my Bible for how to play. And I got off the school bus, and I remember my dad had this magazine and it said Randy Rhoads on it. I'm like, okay, that must be who is playing this solo. And I got home and I'm like, oh, wow, it's got 5 songs transcribed. And the one on the bottom is Revelation Mother Earth. So I'm like, okay. I go to the back, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, how the hell do you read this? And it's just a bunch of numbers on lines, which we now know is guitar tab. So I made that my goal as a kid growing up, like, I'm going to play that solo. That was the solo that got me to pick up a guitar. And I started from the very beginning. And it says right here, before he was Ozzy Osbourne's guitar player, Randy Rhoads was an in-demand guitar teacher in California. And it goes over all his warm-up exercises he would do backstage before he went out and played, and stuff he would give to his students. So I learned to play guitar through this damn magazine. And then, and then my dad's brother, who's the guitar player in the family, saw how much of an interest I was taking into this. And that's when he started inviting me over to his house and started showing me, okay, we're going to take what you learned and expand it into this and actually give you some sort of training. Because my uncle had started playing guitar when he was 7 and started with lessons and had been playing his whole life. He actually took lessons from Jimmy Bell as one of his teachers back in the 90s. They were roommates for about 2 or 3 years. And my uncle still has a notebook with Jimmy's handwriting lessons all inside of it with exercises and stuff. So after the magazine, I started playing more with my uncle and I started learning more of the Randy stuff. And that was like my blueprint of what a guitar player should be, was Randy. And all, like the picture on the front cover here again, like, I'm like, that's what a guitar player should be. Yeah. And it's sad though, seeing what we have for guitar players now. You don't have this originality and anymore.
There might be some underground stuff, but for the most part, the rock star is gone. In a lot of the bigger things. Because there's a quote I want to talk about, and I guess we'll mention it now because it's perfect timing. It goes something like, people listen more with their ear. No, people see more with their ears than their eyes.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Exactly.
Oh, their eyes and their ears. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they see more with their eyes than their ears.
Yeah, that's what it was. So that's, and you were talking about that. You were saying that, like, not only do you have to be a good player, you also have to have the look as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so that was the inspiration at 11 for picking up a guitar. And then my dad started playing me the videos that are online of the after hours footage with Randy, which is like some of the only scarce footage of him with Ozzy on the internet. So that was like my big inspiration and what gave me the drive to practice every day and get better at it, So
I love how supportive your family is. It seems like I said, I love how supportive everybody in your family is. Your mother, your father, your uncle. Nobody said, "Oh, come on, it's a waste of time." They said, "Oh, you want to learn this? Here, let's play guitar, let's play piano, let's sing." They really supported you to get to where you are now and live your dream.
Yeah, no, they did that with all 3 of us. My sister was also dancing 7 days a week, and then she started picking up the bass when she was around 15. My brother was doing child acting on a couple of small TV shows for HBO and advertisements for Google and stuff like that. that he was getting through a talent agency here in Connecticut that specifically did like, child talent for commercials and television work and that kind of, and that kind of
Good.
thing. I mean, he still gets a royalty check in the mail sometimes. And I laugh because I'm like, yeah, now you know what it's like to be a musician, sucker.
What
When
do
he
you?
gets
I was gonna say, what do
what?
you get? Like 3 cents every time a song is played on
Yeah,
iTunes?
something like that. He gets a freaking check in the mail and it's for like $2.
Right? That's rent for the month. Yes, I can eat this month.
Exactly, yeah. So, but because it was union and stuff, even though it was a very small role he still got paid for it.
Good.
So
Yeah.
they were very supportive of all three of us. I mean, between driving me around to all the music stuff, my sister to all her dance stuff, my brother to all his acting auditions, and then I'm sure you saw, I was doing the dancing stuff too, like my sister. So add that on top of it. Yeah,
Well,
they were.
yeah, I was gonna
What
say
was
your
that?
first job was in a ballroom dance instructor, I
Oh
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, the things you do for money. I was kind of.
That's
I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back to dancing. Okay. What happened was. Okay. What happened was. I was doing ballet my whole life growing up, especially from like 11 all the way up to about 19, and doing it like pre-professionally with competitions and everything, getting scholarships to summer programs where okay, you're just because you're a guy, will give you room and board and 50% tuition for our summer program, but if you could dance good, okay, we'll bump that up to 100% tuition scholarship. Where next thing you know, I'm going to Florida for 4 weeks, living in Boca Raton and doing a dance program, and just because I can dance and they're paying
yeah,
for it, so I'm like, okay, cool.
yeah.
Within that time, I was, it was also important that you knew how to do other styles of dance, just like with guitar. If you want to be a touring or session guitar player like Joel Hoekstra, who I'm sure you're familiar with from Whitesnake, TSO, you got to know how to play other styles of music and not just one. So for 4 years, from about 8 till 12 or 13, I did ballroom with my sister. And we did competitions with, that style of dance and everything. So here's where the job comes back in. I'm 19 years old. I finished high school. I'm only got like a cover band I'm playing in. My dad's like, oh, you need to get a job. You're done with high school and everything. You didn't go to college. I was like, yeah, I didn't go to college. I'm going to need a job. So my sister was working at this ballroom dance school, the Fred Astaire dance studios, which is where we had learned to do ballroom growing up as kids. They are a franchise throughout the country, so they have multiple locations throughout the country. And her boss saw me come in one day to pick her up. I hadn't danced ballroom in probably, oh God, 6, 8 years, but I had done ballet the whole time. So I was limber and, still in shape and everything, but I had no interest in doing it. I was, just joined Sacred Oath at the time. It was around the time of joining Sacred Oath that I was in this job for some reason. And I'm actually glad that Sacred Oath came around, because Sacred Oath got me out of this fucking job. Not gonna lie. I gotta thank Rob, because Rob got me out of one of the shittiest jobs. I don't mean to,
I know exactly what you're saying, and Rob, we all thank you for getting Damiano
Yeah.
back on the right path.
Because what happened was that they were looking for teachers. I needed a job. The guy was, bugging me to do it, because he was like, if you use like, just you being a guy, you could make so much money doing this, because there are people who make a lot of money doing that ballroom dance instruction stuff for a franchise like Fred Astaire.
Yeah.
Because the year I was there, I had to learn their whole business model and how they work as a franchise. And I realized that there are some people in that company that make hundreds of thousands of dollars just selling dance lessons.
Oh.
You would be surprised that the things they sell to people and the things that people will pay for as well on top of it. So we were doing all of that, and they were like, if you want this job, you got to cut your hair. And I'm like, I'm like, you know what? This is the only thing paying me a steady income right now. So why not? So I stayed there for a year, and I got the call from Rob. I want to say 5 months before I quit, because they apparently I just finished up doing 12 bells. And when I was working with Mike C at the time, we had just finished, we were kind of in the ending stages with Mike and that whole project. And we were introduced to a friend of his named Jay Reason. Do you know Jay at all?
I don't know Jay, no.
Okay, so I think Jay worked for Sony, and that's how Mike knew him. But they were friends since Jay was a kid. And Jay apparently knows somebody that works with Rob with the Sacred Oath record stuff. I think it's the guy, his last name is Cusinelli, that works with Rob. So they had some sort of meeting about the 12 Bells record with the album art, as I was told by Jay, and that they mentioned wanting a third guitar player to go on the road with them to fill in parts of the songs that were, that they wanted to have live. And Jay had mentioned me, and that I could play keyboards, I could sing, I could play guitar. And I remember actually getting a call from Jay at work. I'd stepped out on a break, and I seen my phone ring, and he's like, I got a band for you that's looking for a guitar player. And he says, telling me they're a local metal band. And at the time, my impression of local metal band from Connecticut wasn't that great of an impression at the time, because I was playing in the original scene and seeing like some of the original stuff and whatnot. And it was a lot of like what they call the Cookie Monster vocals. And I came from an upbringing of like listening to Maiden, Priest, Dio, with very clean classic vocals that had some personality to them, which is why that stuff's timeless and memorable. People remember a voice like Rob Halford because of that, that grit he had, but that operatic characteristic he had to his voice that he still has. So
that was my first concert back in, I want to say 1984 or 5 was the Defenders of the Faith tour. I can't remember which, or was it 86? Somewhere around there.
Yeah, no, dude, that's awesome. They were my first concert too. When I was 10, they came to the Oakdale with Whitesnake for the Nostradamus tour, but they were also doing, I think it was celebrating 30 or 35 years of British Steel.
Oh.
So they played all of British Steel. And this was when both Glenn and KK were still in the band. So I saw the whole original lineup of Priest, So when Jay's telling me he's got this, local heavy metal band from Connecticut looking for a guitar player, and I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, it's gonna be like, that kind of stuff with, an 8-string guitar tuned into, Oblivion tuning, whatever drop. But then I looked them up. Jay sent me their website, and they hadn't put out 12 Bells yet, so all the Taken stuff was still on there. So I listened to Taken, and I was like, wow, these guys are really friggin' good, and it's a really catchy song, but it's still got the heavy metal aspect to them, you know, of classic metal to it. And Rob's voice had like the perfect metal character to it, and he knew when to put the hints of screaming into it perfectly. And I was like, these guys sound a lot different than what's going around with the original scene so far. Why aren't there more Sacred Oaths? I'm thinking to myself, because these guys are friggin' awesome. I'm listening to the music.
I want to tell you really quick, you probably know my story with them. I bought their demo tape, Shadow Out of Time, I want to say 86, somewhere around there. And in the demo, it said, if you want a free t-shirt, get 10 of your friends to write to us. We'll send you a free t-shirt. Went to school, got 10 friends to write. Next thing you know, I get a phone call. I'd like to speak to Rich. Yeah, this is Rich. Yeah, this is Pete Altieri, who was the original bass player. Here's the co-founder with Rob. And he goes, we like to send you a shirt. I'd love to meet you. You seem like a really cool guy. So we went to Phoenix Records in Waterbury, met them, partied with them, I don't know how many times. I've been friends with them ever since. Great guys. And I said the same thing too. I used to see them at the Agora Ballroom opening for Fate's Warning and all these different bands. I said, this is local metal. The other stuff, I agree with you, like Cannibal Corpse, which is not local, but that's Cookie Monster Rock and stuff like that. I never got into. That's probably the one thing I really never got into, because it's just no, as you said, no personality. So, but yeah, when I saw Rob sing for the first time, he has the melodic vocals, and then he can get, a little bit more gruff if he needs to, and I love the lyrics, the melodies. So yeah, it's just that I'm so glad that they got back together and now they're playing with you, because you are a perfect fit for that band.
Thank you. And it's funny you mentioned the stuff like Shadow Out of Time, because everything from that first record and then hearing what they have evolved into now, it's almost like night and day.
Oh yeah.
But like I was saying, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, why aren't there more bands, doing what Sacred Oath is doing? Why is everyone trying to get onto this, trend of, everything's got to be, to where vocals are so gritty you can't understand what they're saying. And now you're struggling to like understand what the song's about, because isn't that the whole purpose of writing music, is to like express yourself and get across what you feel to the audience? Well, if the audience can't understand what you're singing, how are they supposed to know what you're feeling and what the song is about? Unless you go into the freaking little CD booklet and have to read the lyrics along with it. But that takes the enjoyment of listening to music away. You shouldn't have to do that when you're listening. That's why I like the Sacred Oath stuff, because you can understand the lyrics. My father loves the lyrics. He hounds Rob about like, what are your lyrics about with this song and this song and this song. And next thing you know, Rob's sitting there giving my dad the history of these tracks off of albums. But I'm like, why is this missing in the in original music around the scene here, and not just our scene, but in general?
Yeah, I agree. I love intelligent, melodic, thoughtful music, and Sacred Oath fits the bill for all of that. And I said, I've been friends with them. I've been fans of them since the late 80s. And as you said, from Shadow Out of Time, Crystal Vision, till now, Return of the Dragon, which is the album that you were on and you co-wrote. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was on the record. Rob wrote all the songs and the lyrics. The only thing I had a hand in was really just where my solos were, composing those. And then, say there was a couple little instances where I added a little part to a section in a song where, say, it wasn't meant to be a solo section, but we added a lead part in there because we thought it sounded cool.
little stuff like that. Um, but when we started that record, Rob had a lot of the ideas like already done. And it was just, him sending us jam tracks between either just himself or he and Kenny got together a couple times and jammed out some ideas, and they would send it to the rest of us so we could hear it. Once everything got arranged and they had the songs already in the final stage of, okay, here's their arrangements, here's what the songs are going to be, Rob would send them to, me and Billy and tell us that, okay, this time I want you to put a solo here. And we would have to send our ideas to Rob because Rob wanted to see what we were going to come in and record. And this was like my first time actually working that way. And at first, all I could remember was, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I've never done this before. I've never actually worked on a professional album like this. This is like brand new to me. And I don't want to let these guys down and have everything I play just be crap. Yeah. So Rob sent me the first couple songs. And the first one I started toying with was the opening track, Cthulhu Wakes. That was the first one I think that Rob had actually wrote and we heard for the first time. It was that, and then Return of the Dragon, the title track, which doesn't have any solos on it. Those were like the first two that I remember hearing from the, demos of when Rob started writing this album. So I did the Cthulhu one first. I listened to it, and all I remember was that one just kind of came to me like that. I was like, you know what? I have something for that. And I was like, this ain't going to be so hard, I don't think, after all. So after that, I started getting more and more songs from Rob. And the more I got into a groove of it, the easier it just kind of came to me. And I was like, you know what? This is actually more fun. I thought I was sitting there like sweating bullets thinking I was going to, crash and burn on this. But here I'm sitting here in the height of the pandemic, mind you, this happened. So we had the pandemic advantage to us as well, because I'm sitting here all day doing nothing because I teach for a living, guitar and piano. So all my lessons go to Skype. But at the same time, I lose a good chunk of my lessons. So I also get a lot of downtime, and I'm sitting here like, you know what? I'm going to use this downtime to write my part of an album. And a lot of it came very easy to me. I was getting ideas flowing with really not a lot of blockage. That was the big fear, was to have a lot of writer's block doing this, because I didn't know what to expect for the material. I had never played on a Sacred Of studio album with, new songs that were being written. My role was to learn all their old stuff that they had already written. So it was almost in a way easier, because I'm so used to playing in a cover band or a tribute band, learning someone else's stuff. So learning all the stuff from the previous albums was like, okay, that's nothing. I can, manage that. But then when it came to, okay, now you're going to play on a studio album and be a part of, making the songs what they are in the final product with your solos, and then it's a little different. And there's a lot more at stake, because now you're part of representing the band. And
what's your process with Elm City Heartbreakers?
A lot of that is I sit in a room with the singer, John, and
we just go back and forth on ideas that we came up with on our own time away from each other. Like on my phone here, on my voice memos, I have hundreds of recordings of me just sitting there with my guitar of riffs that I could use for any ideas in the future if I want to craft my songs and stuff. You know, and then a lot of the times I'll get a full arrangement of a tune, just spur of the moment. I'll be sitting there and I'm like, I get the verse part, and then all of a sudden the pre-chorus and the chorus and the bridge just come out of my hands, and I'm like hearing it in my head as I go along, and it's not been thought out at first. It's all spur of the moment. So I have my phone recording it so I don't forget it. Cause like I'm going, and I'm like, you know what? I'm liking this. I'm hearing all the melodies and everything, and I'm like, I don't want to forget this. So let's put the record on, and a couple times I'm lucky. I get a full song out of it, and then I meet up with the singer John, and then we'll go back and forth, and he'll offer ideas on, you know, arrangement and add parts and whatnot, or you know, we leave it as is. Before I met John, I used to do all that with the drummer, except differently. I would just sit in front of the drummer while he played a beat the whole time, and that's Zach. And I would sit on a chair in front of him with the guitar and just come up with riffs to his beats. That was the other way of doing it before I met the singer John. Was me and the drummer would just sit there, Zach and I, and he would just, you know, do his beats, and I would, if I had a couple ideas already to go and start ahead on, I would fool around with them and start crafting the other parts. And next you knew, I had a song within, you know, probably 5 or 10 minutes, and we would start banging out 2 or 3 originals every time we got together.
You know what's funny, because you mentioned about remembering the song. I'm a huge fan of the Beatles, and there's a special on Hulu. It's a series of interviews with Rick Rubin, the producer, with Paul McCartney. And Paul McCartney said that in the very beginning, he made all the songs simple so he wouldn't forget them. He goes, we had nothing to record them on. I didn't want to forget them, so I made all these simple songs. And I love all facets of the Beatles. I love the She Loves You all the way to Strawberry Fields Forever and Sgt. Pepper's. There's everything in between.
Yeah.
But I love the simple stuff. It's catchy. It makes you want to get up and dance and sing with it. So, but it's funny. The reason he did that was because he was afraid of forgetting the songs, because he didn't have a phone to record them on or anything else. So one more thing about Sacred Oath. I read this. I want you to confirm it or deny it. I heard they're going to be playing the Crystal Vision album live.
Yeah.
All right.
I already know the whole thing. I can play the whole record front to back. I learned all of Glenn's parts from the original Crystal Vision album. Last time I rehearsed with Rob and Kenny, we played through every song. And I had already known some of the songs from prior shows in the past. Like I had already played Two Powers, Crystal Vision, the title track, Ferryman's Lair, Rising from the Grave, and Shadow Out of Time. I had already played those 5. So I had another 4 to learn, which was Message to the Children, The Beginning, The Omen, and then I am Magic Sun, which those 4 were the other ones I had to learn.
Now, wait, because that's the album that I was introduced. I was introduced before that with Shadow Out of Time, which a lot of those songs from the demo are on the album. But yeah, so I cannot wait to see you guys live. I will be at probably several of your shows. I'm looking forward to that. I want to go back to the year 2014 though, because I want to talk about the Randy Rhoads Remembered Crazy Train contest that you entered at the age of 16.
Holy wow, that was 2014.
Yes.
Wow, that's almost 10 years ago.
Oh.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. No. That.
Welcome to your trip down memory lane.
Yeah, I know. It's weird because you mentioned something like that, and it feels like it happened yesterday
Yeah.
to me. And then I look at the date here on my computer, 2/15/2022, and you said 2014, and I'm like, that's a long ass time.
And for what happened to
um,
you at such a young age
yeah.
must have been overwhelming.
Well, the funny thing is, at that time, I had been pulled from public school and switched over to an online schooling system. So I was doing my schoolwork online at home all day. And in the meantime, I was playing away, practicing guitar 5-6 hours a day in high school. And then I was going to dance at night with my sister. And then on weekends, I would go play in my uncle's band. When I was like 15, 16, he had a 80s cover band that he played in, and I knew almost every song on the set list. So he would let me just stand up there and play like 3 or 4 songs while he went and took a break from playing, because I knew all the music. And from there, I started, posting all my gig stuff on Facebook. I figured out what Facebook was as a teen, and I was posting all the photos from gigs. I would compile all the photos from each gig I did, filling in with his band, and post them on my Facebook. I'd post the videos, and I started getting really heavy into the Randy stuff. And then I saw on Facebook they have this, Randy Rhoads Society page, which is like the official fan page for him. So one year at NAMM's show, Brian Tishy there from Whitesnake and Ozzy and Billy Idol, Foreigner, you name it. He's probably played drums with almost every classic rock band that, we listen to. He put together this Randy Rhoads Remembered performance that they do at NAMM. And he also was the organizer of Bonzo Bash that they do at NAMM, and the Ronnie Montrose Remembered show that they do at NAMM. So they did the Randy show at NAMM that January 2014. And then they decided they were going to do an East Coast tour of the show and hit New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. I think they did like 7 or 8 shows. And before they came out to this side of the country, they put a ad on Facebook for a contest that if you wanted to play Crazy Train at any of the performance locations on the tour, that they wanted you to submit a video of you playing Crazy Train by, X date, and, include your performance location you want to play Crazy Train at with Brian Tishy and Rudy Sarzo. So I did my video in my living room. Mind you, I was 16. I didn't have all the stuff you see in my videos now, like the Marshall amps and all of that. I had a tiny little Roland Cube amp that I was plugged into. My audition video is actually still on my YouTube channel. If you dig deep into it, I have like this weird bowl looking haircut with a Yankees sleeveless t-shirt on and a red Les Paul. And it looks like it was filmed in the dark. It literally does, because it was like summertime, but like dusk out. I didn't turn any of my lights on. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was like, I just need to get this video done. And they ended up picking my video, and I got a call at like, God, 1:00 in the morning, because they're in California and didn't realize the whole 3-hour time zone difference, telling me that I won and that I was going to get the opportunity to play with Rudy Sarzo and Brian Tishy and then meet
Randy Rhoads' family, which was his brother and sister, Kathy and Kelly. So I ended up doing that at Stafford Palace Theater in Stafford Springs, up where the racetrack is. And that was a lot of fun, getting to play next to Rudy and see Brian and then Randy's family, and then hang out with all the guys that were guest playing on guitar that night, like Phil Demmel and Metal Mike. Who else was there? Jeff Young, one of the first guitar players from Megadeth, was playing in that show. The guy that was actually playing bass for Whitesnake the past 10 years, his name was Michael Devlin from Massachusetts, was also playing bass on the songs Rudy didn't play on, and also keyboards for songs like Mr. Crowley they were doing, and stuff that had keyboards. So there was a lot of cool guys that I got to, converse with. Oh, and before I forget, they had Chris Caffrey from Sabotage and TSO. I got to sit right there and I'm watching him. He's like playing the Flying High Again solo, and he's, going over all the Randy stuff. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And I'm only 16 and I'm just sitting there going, okay.
Did you have a chance to sit down and talk to them afterwards?
So the funny thing was, I got to actually sit and talk with Chris before we played, because we were all sitting there, and it's the Flying High Again solo. Actually, he saw me playing it, and he's like, no, that's not the way he plays it. You're doing it wrong. And I was like, but the notes sound the same. The only thing you're doing different is playing it across 3 strings instead of 2, like I am. So he says to me, yeah, I've seen the way people do it that 2-string way. That's the cheater's way. If you want to do it the way Randy did it, he's like, do it across the 3 strings with the bend on the G. So he showed me that, and that's stuck in my hand ever since. So I kind of got a little guitar lesson from him before the show. And that's like, I think that was like really the only person I spoke to. I was like too scared to talk to Rudy Sarzo, even though he's the nicest guy ever. I was too afraid to talk to him, because I was like, that's the guy that stood next to Randy on the same stage every night. Right. So, and then out of that show, I ended up getting contacted to do an Ozzy tribute, which ended up spearheading Ozzy America and, creating what ended up becoming like just a movement of tribute bands coming out of Connecticut at that time. Because when we started that, the tribute band scene wasn't what it is now. When we started Ozzy America the following year, which would have been 2015, we did our first show in Stratford, and we had the whole backdrop with the castle, like Diary of a Madman tour, costumes. I had the amps and everything, and there really weren't any tributes going around doing the lookalike thing. And then we started trying to get bigger shows, and next thing we saw that there were like all of a sudden these tribute bands popping up out of New York City doing an Ozzy tribute, Van Halen tributes, Bon Jovi tributes, Rock of Ages, the Def Leppard tribute, which I ended up joining like 4 years later. I was watching those guys get all the gigs that I wanted with my Ozzy tribute when we started it. So we're doing the Ozzy thing after the Randy Rhoads Remembered show, and then I started this whole I guess you could say career now of playing in tribute bands as a way to establish myself and get myself out there. And yeah,
That's a great way to get your name out there. Then you could play songs, because when people go to a bar, as much as as a former musician and as a fan, I love hearing original stuff, but I also like hearing the classics mixed in. So you have a perfect combination with Elm City Heartbreakers and the tribute bands. As I mentioned earlier, I love seeing the bands as they sounded in their prime, and your bands that I've seen are a perfect example of that. But question for you: why you mentioned that New York City bands or New York bands were getting more of the gigs than Connecticut? Why was that?
So there was a thing going around at the time when we were trying to book the band that a lot of the venues were only wanting to book New York City bands because they thought that the quality they were bringing was higher than any of what the local Connecticut bands were bringing. And I'm like, well, have you seen our Ozzy tribute with our costumes and everything? We're doing the same thing these bands from New York are doing. And that was the argument at the time. And then we proved our point when we came into one of those venues, and we ended up packing it every time we played the place.
Good.
So I was like, last I checked, no one's doing a Randy Rhoads tribute around the New England area. The only one I knew of on the East Coast, and I'm friends with the guy on Facebook. He goes by Dr. Fred on Facebook because he's an actual doctor in some sort of field with medicine. But he does a Randy Rhoads tribute called The Rails, and he dresses up like Randy. He's got all the guitars and everything too. And then there's Roads to Oz from California. Those guys were really big on Facebook as doing a Randy and Ozzy tribute from California, because they actually did a show with Randy's brother Kelly, and they did like a collaboration together with their tribute. So
How is Kelly?
yeah, there weren't Kelly's Randy's older brother.
Kelly, how is he though on guitar?
How is he on guitar is what you asked?
Yeah, I know who he is, but I've never heard him play. I was wondering how he is compared to Randy.
He actually, Kelly never played guitar. Kelly was a drummer, and he also plays piano.
Okay.
And Kelly was the drummer for Randy's first band when they were kids.
Okay.
And Kelly's the one that actually took Randy to his first rock concert, which was Alice Cooper back in the 70s. So that's what Kelly does. Kelly's a drummer, a singer, and a piano player.
Well, that could be a good reason why I never heard him play guitar.
Yeah.
I've seen him on Facebook, and for some reason I knew he was a musician, but I forgot. Now that you're mentioning it, I did remember that he did say he was a drummer. But that's really cool that you got a chance to meet them, hang out with them a little bit, and even play with them. That's even
yeah.
I'm sorry. You know what? I don't know if you ever had a chance to speak with anybody else that played in the Ozzy bands throughout the years, but Sharon, everything that she's done to all these poor music, like Bob Daisley, who wrote all the songs, and all these other people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We're gonna take your name off and get a studio musician, so we don't have to pay you. Really?
Yeah.
I hear these stories. I've talked to a lot of different people that were either affiliated with that or even played with Ozzy. We'll talk about that later, because we have a connection with another Claw's Corner guest that was on my show that you played with. And he talked about that for about 10, 15 minutes. He just said it was horrible. And she definitely seems very cutthroat.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. She's been the reason for a lot of drama behind Ozzy.
Yeah. But fortunately, the music is the most important, and the music lives on. So I'm happy to hear that. And people like you are keeping Randy's memory alive, and letting people know who are way too young to know of him say, oh yeah. And then they'll want to go and check him out and see, who is this guy that Damiano's playing. So I love the fact you're doing that.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, we talked about this several times with COVID hit, for especially you. You're a touring musician. I mean, it was devastating to a lot of people. They lost they couldn't do this, couldn't do that. I mean, that's your livelihood. You're out there playing, you're teaching. What happened then? I mean, you wrote with Sacred Oath. Was there anything else that you did to try to keep busy and make some money?
I did a couple live streams. I started trying to dabble in that, and then I
saw a lot of technology that was going into the production of it, and where people were taking the quality of doing live streams, and I was like, yeah, that's just way in over my head. I don't know how to do these multi-camera shots and have them change automatically on a timer with the live feed.
Yeah.
Because I was seeing people doing that with like their acoustic acts and going between these different angles. I'm like, it looks really cool, but I don't know how to do that. So and I was like, I certainly don't have the money to be going out and buying these really nice high definition cameras either. So I did a couple live streams. I did like a Randy Rhoads tribute night. I did a Van Halen tribute night. And then I kind of cut it at that. I lost an interest in doing it because then it kind of became a chore. I'm like, shit, I got to learn like, 2 hours worth of material to do a tribute to this one dude. And I'm like, fine. So I was doing those, and people would end up tipping me through this. I mean, through one of them, I ended up making what I made normally at a gig.
Wow. Not too bad.
And I was like, okay, cool. And I mean, I should have stuck with it. I wish I did. But, I got pooped out with it. There was a lot I had to, I was like, oh, this is a lot to do. It's just one guy. So I was mainly doing that. And then I was trying to get, session work. Like if people needed any keyboard tracks, because everyone can record now from just the luxury of their laptop.
Yeah.
To do a record. You don't need to be in a studio with the band anymore. You just send your files to each other and get the ideas. So I was trying to do some like keyboard stuff. I was, advertising, if anyone needs any keyboard tracks done. I did one for, I think, what was the band? Shadow Kingdom, I think they're called, from Connecticut. I did a track for them. I started trying to lend my services to, any studio work or songwriting stuff. Like if someone needed, wanted anything produced, I could, help them write it, and make some money.
There's
But
something you
otherwise-
did. Oh, no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say there's something you did on July 4th, 2020, 7 a.m. Tell my viewers about that.
July 4th, 2020, it's 7
Independence
a.m.
Day. You played the
Say
national
radio
anthem.
back again. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So that was all spearheaded by a good friend of mine who goes by the alias of Dr. J. That was his DJ name. And he and I used to play in a band together, a top 40 band that I was in. And he's also a sound guy that basically ran the band's sound system and brought all the rolling racks in and everything. And he's like, he calls me up and he's like, what do you think of the idea of you waking up my neighbors at 7 a.m. on 4th of July with both your Marshall full stacks on my front doorstep? Because if you look at the front of his house, he's got this huge 2-level grand staircase that goes up to his front door. So he's like, why don't you put your Marshall stacks right at the top of this staircase, crank them up, and at 7 a.m. you start playing the national anthem. He's like, I'll record it. We'll put it on Facebook. We need to get you Facebook famous and viral. I'm like,
Yes.
Okay, I'm down. And he's always got a stunt in mind to put on the internet with me. So that's what I ended up doing that morning. I went there with my stacks like the night before. And then I went the next day early in the morning, set them up, turn the amps on, and next I'm playing the national anthem. And I ended up doing it, I think, 3 or 4 times at different time slots throughout the day because people kept coming and asking for me to play it. Like I ended up playing for like parades of people because people were starting to, do their 4th of July stuff and whatever. And that's yeah.
And you can find that also on your YouTube channel. I saw at least 3 versions of that on your YouTube channel, which is Damiano Christian. Just type it in YouTube. You have tons of great videos on there, which I want to talk about. But before we do,
Yeah.
tell my viewers what the Brotherhood of Guitar is.
Okay, so the Brotherhood of the Guitar is a organization founded by photographer Robert M. Knight, who did a lot of photography for Led Zeppelin, Jeff Beck, Jimi Hendrix, and bands like that back in the day. For young guitar players to help them get exposure in the music industry. And he was teamed up with Fender and any other companies owned by Fender. So like Charvel, Jackson, because they're now all owned by Fender. So if you played any of those, or even like an Ernie Ball, because he had a deal with Ernie Ball, a part of this foundation as well, that you could be a part of the Brotherhood of the Guitar. Well, through that, you ended up getting an endorsement with Ernie Ball. And at the time, I was playing my like Jackson guitars, and he saw my stuff through a friend of mine on Facebook, and I ended up going down to New York City and meeting him. And it was the morning of a concert he was supposed to shoot for ZZ Top. And he was actually going to meet with Billy Gibbons after he, did my video interview for the website and it, the photos and everything. So I ended up doing all that with him, and that's how I ended up getting involved with Brotherhood of the Guitar and the endorsement with Ernie Ball. And I've kept the relationship with Ernie Ball ever since, throughout my career now with Sacred Oath and the tribute bands and everything else I've been doing. So that's how they came in. Yeah.
How many other endorsements do you have right now?
So the only other endorsement I have is with Marshall Amplification. And I got that strictly through it's funny because I use all their amps on the road in all my videos. And what was it? The winter of 2018, I ended up getting a message on Instagram from somebody that worked at Marshall asking if they could use one of my Instagram videos as part of their promo video that they were going to be featuring throughout the day at NAMM for 2019. So this was going to be like part of their big, sales pitch for using Marshall at NAMM at 2019. And I sent them my video that they asked for off of my Instagram page, which had my Marshall amps in it. And my boss went to NAMM that year because he goes every year with, the school I teach at, Rock House School of Music. All his books are distributed through Guitar Centers and Sam Ash. And so he has his books displayed at the Hal Leonard booth. And I asked him, I'm like, if you go to NAMM in 2019, can you maybe find out who their AR rep is? And, when the video's playing, point at, you should be like, you see that kid on there in your video? He works for me. And I ended up getting in contact with the guy who's the AR rep there because, luckily he actually knew my boss from a prior company that he worked at. Yeah. So that's how the whole Marshall thing came together. And next thing you know, I'm buying 2 white Marshall cabinets from them to be made for me and sent over here from the UK that I use now in all my performances. And you'll see me using them with Sacred Oath too. So yeah, right now it's just Marshall and Ernie Ball. I'd love to get, MXR Dunlop next for my whole pedal board rig that I use.
I don't have a guitar endorsement. The only reason because is the guitar I use. It's not a, you know, named brand, you know, guitar like Jackson or Fender or Charvel. It's, the guitar you see in all the Sacred Oath photos, my red jerk in the box. This is a custom made, no, company guitar that, wasn't really a big name company. It was like a, what would you call it? Like an underground guitar company. So that went out of business way before I was born. And so it's like trying to get an endorsement with a guitar company and, off of a guitar where the company doesn't exist anymore is kind of hard to do. And I don't want to part with the guitar either because, I haven't seen anyone else play a guitar that's got all these, graphics on it. So I figured I'd, make this guitar, my own. Like Eddie with the stripes, Randy with the polka dots, George Lynch with the tiger stripes, you name it.
Yeah.
So right now, those are just the only two endorsements that are on the shelf right now.
I like the fact that you stick with what you believe in. You're not going to just sell out to like, well, I can get an endorsement if I play this guitar. Nope. I like the fact because originality is missing in a lot of music these days. And I like the fact you're like, no, just like Randy had his thing, Eddie had his, Damiano's going to have your own thing. So I say stick with that. 2 endorsements is fine. There's going to be plenty more in the future. You still have plenty of time, and you're definitely going to forge a name for yourself.
And I gotta thank Rob for letting me do that with Sacred Oath because, I said the same thing to Rob. I'm like, I don't play one of the 7-string guitars or, one of the more metal looking, V shape or whatever guitars. This is my axe, and I just want to be me on this record with Return of the Dragon, and he was all for it. And you'll see me playing this Saturday too with my own band. So I mean I've used this guitar for every band I've played in now over the past 3 or 4 years. So it's gonna stay with me. Yeah, it's gonna stay with me. And I'm actually in touch with the guy who built it. Funny we mentioned that the company's been out of business since before I was born. I ended up getting to meet the guy who built it over the summer. That was, part of my whole gigging run I was doing because I was playing nonstop every weekend last year from like February all the way up until October. So around July or June, I ended up meeting the guy who built my guitar at one of my shows at Mohegan Sun where we played in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. So it was close to where he lived. And he ended up signing the guitar.
Love it. Did he know that who you were before that, or did he just happen to be at the show, see your guitar, and introduce himself afterwards?
No, he knew who I was, and I had found him on Facebook, I want to say a year or more prior, and he had said that he's seen all my posts because I tag him in every single video and picture with this guitar on Facebook. So he knew me before we met, and I had actually arranged for the two of us to meet because he had mentioned he lived in Pennsylvania and I was playing there. So I was like, okay, how far is this from me? He's like, oh, that's actually pretty close to where he lived at the time. So he met me before the show, and I had him look at the guitar, and I got to learn a little bit about it, and he told me, he was able to tell me that it was one of the first he made for his company, because he used to build for Kramer and BC Rich. And he was one of the first to start using what they call CNC machinery operating system, where they are able to, cut out the body of a guitar and program it into a machine like they do nowadays. It's not done by hand. So he was doing all that for Kramer and BC Rich, doing all their necks and body cuts for bodies and, you name it. So after Kramer went bankrupt around, I think 89 or 90, he starts Bolt Guitars, which is this guitar. So this ends up being the first one of the, I guess you could call it, prototype guitars, because they were going to do, after the prototype guitars, a general run of guitars for, like, production series guitars. And the production guitars didn't have the necks painted to match the body. It was bare wood, like you see on the EVH guitars and the Strat Fender guitars. So that was the dead giveaway to him. It was like, yeah, we didn't paint any of the back of the necks on our production guitars, just the prototypes. The other thing too is you're missing the serial number under the 24th fret, like they do with like a Jackson guitar and a Charvel. They would, put the serial numbers at the bottom of the neck. There's no serial number anywhere on the guitar. And so that's the whole story with this guitar, and kind of how I came into being my own guitar player and wanting to create my own image. Like, all the guys I grew up listening to they created their own image that has now stood all the way up till now.
Years later, like you're looking at the Randy Rhoads cover, people are going to be looking at that cover and say, that guitar, I want to be just like Damiano. The Bolt
I
guitar.
would love this to be on an album cover. I mean,
yeah,
it would make the cool. I think just the graphic alone, would make a cool album cover on its own.
Yeah, definitely.
But
I love the drawings on it.
Yeah, no, all it is, they call it Jerk in the Box, because it's a Jack in the Box with a machine gun taking down a toy soldier on a chessboard.
Oh, that's funny. Now I see it. Yeah.
And he's even got bullet holes in the toy soldier. So
yeah, that's great.
When I met the guy who built it, I wanted to get a duplicate of this made, because I started getting afraid of taking this out on the road, because I don't have a replacement of it. This is the only one, so if anything happens to it, I'm screwed. Yeah. And the only problem was we don't have an airbrush artist to replicate all the artwork on it, to make a replica of it, because I wanted to get another one made so I could leave this at home and bring out the duplicate, and no one would know the difference, and the original safe at home in my studio. So he and I actually started talking about building me a second guitar, but with different graphics on it. And I remember last he and I spoke, he had already drawn out the template of the body for what the guitar was going to be. And we matched it actually a lot to this guitar, because I wanted it matched, scale length wise to my guitar I play now. I didn't want it to feel like a totally different guitar, So we'll see how that goes. And hopefully I end up having, a Bolt number 2 guitar in the future that is going to have a totally different graphic on it. And, who knows? Maybe I'll just, that'll be my endorsement, is with Bolt guitars.
Love it. Bring them back. You're bringing Bolt back alive.
I would love to.
Right. I want to talk about another show you did. You did a benefit for the Station Club in Kingston, Rhode Island. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So that was with my original Aussie tribute, Aussie America, that you mentioned at the beginning today. And we were contacted by them to do this benefit show for the victims of that club fire that happened at the Great White concert. And all the proceeds from this gig we were doing were going to go to the survivors from that. And I guess this was being put together by the photographer that was there that night, and he was a notable band photographer at the time of the fire as well. So we did that, but they had us like quote unquote headline the festival.
Yeah.
But by the time we went on, it was like 12 o'clock at night, and it was weird because I was expecting to go in there, you know, considering that was a pretty horrific major event that a lot of people knew about. I just figured, knowing the history behind it alone, that there would have been a lot of people in there, like people who were, victims from it, or, family members, stuff like that. All I remember is walking in there with my gear, and I'm like, where is everybody? And all I remember is seeing like small groups of people here, small groups of people there. We set up. Next thing you know, we're playing, and all these people just show up, and I'm like, where did all of you just magically appear out of?
They were all in the bathroom.
Yeah. And next thing you know, I'm getting pointed out to, that woman there, she was a survivor from it. And, this person over here was there. And I'm like, okay, so, it was a really fun event. We went on last as the headliner, but they all loved us. And that's kind of all that really happened with that one. We kind of just went in, played, and left after because we were playing all the way out in Rhode Island. We were like 3 hours away from home, and I was with my dad at the time. I didn't have my license or anything. I was kind of just still a kid. I was like 18, and he and I decided to drive back home.
Yeah.
at 1 o'clock in the morning, and we ended up having to stop 2 hours into it because we were just like starting to doze off driving down the highway. But
I'm glad that you did that, because that was such a horrific incident, as you mentioned. I'm so glad that you did raise money for the victims and the members of the family of the victims. So in 2021, I want to jump up a little bit. You began playing with Band Inc. Who are they, and how'd you become connected with them?
So with Band Inc., that connection all happened through Facebook.
It's been very good to you.
Yeah, I know. And what happened was there was a friend of mine from here locally who happened to be friends with the girl that was running Band Inc., which I don't play in any longer. I only was mostly, I was playing in it for a long time. Originally, I was coming in just to fill in. And that turned into a more permanent role in the band because they liked the job I did as a fill-in so much, they decided to keep me. So what that band was just literally word of mouth. How I got that gig was through a friend who knew the person doing Band Inc., and that person put out, oh, I need a fill-in guitar player. Does anyone know anybody? So my name got through in there, and I ended up doing the gig, filling in. Next thing you know, I'm playing with the band every weekend. and we're doing gigs opening for Grace Potter from Grace Potter and the Nocturnals, and we did that up at Bank of New Hampshire Pavilion. We ended up opening for the Dave Matthews with our acoustic act. And then the last one I did was opening for Alice Cooper and Ace Frehley.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed it. It was what I had wanted to be doing from the beginning, was, traveling around, playing different states every weekend, which is what we were doing.
Now,
We
did
were
you open up for them the whole time? Because I know Dave Matthews likes to have local bands play at different cities. So was that what happened with you and
Yeah.
Dave Matthews?
No, so we just did the one show where we opened for him in Boston.
Okay.
Someone who had come to see Band Inc. all the time. Knew the woman that booked the opening acts at the venue we played in Massachusetts, which was up in Mansfield. What is that up there? The Iron Maiden plays there every time they come to Massachusetts. It's in Mansfield, Mass.
Not sure of the name of it, but I know what you're talking about. I just can't think of the name of the venue.
and I saw Black Sabbath there for their farewell tour, but we ended up opening for Dave Matthews there because, someone who came to see Band Inc. knew the woman that, booked at this venue, and she reached out to us saying, "Oh, you guys want to, do an opening slot with your acoustic gig?" And they offered us multiple dates actually for different acts. And they were like, "Pick one." So we picked the Dave Matthews one. And then we got the Ace Frehley one through the Grace Potter gig. Those two were at the same venue.
Okay. When
we did Grace Potter, after that opening gig, the woman who books the Bank of New Hampshire Pavilion comes up and she's like, our audience loved you so much. We never have a band back twice, but they keep wanting you guys to come back. So they offered us the Ace Frehley, Alice Cooper one. And we did that. And then shortly after that, I left.
No, well, wait, before I get into why you left, what was it like with how were Alice Cooper and Ace? Were they very approachable?
So we didn't get to meet them because of the whole COVID shenanigans. I've worked with a guy in California now on a couple different video projects, and these video projects have all included Ryan Roxy, Alice Cooper's guitar player. I was supposed to meet Alice's guitar player there, Ryan, at the gig where we opened for Ace.
Yeah.
And then they mentioned that there was some sort of, COVID tour manager on site with them, and they have to stay backstage in a COVID bubble the whole time. And I'm like, really, dude?
That's not rock and roll. Come on.
I'm like, come on, guys. Come on. But yeah, I would have had the opportunity to meet them all. I mean, even I don't know if you're familiar with Matt Starr from Connecticut. He plays drums for Ace Frehley now.
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He's a local guy from Connecticut. He's friends with guys like Opus and Jimmy Bell and BJ Zampa. He's one of those cats.
Okay.
And so I had plans to meet up with all of them at that gig, and the COVID thing was what, planted all that down. But I knew of I got the meeting set up with Ryan though through the videos I was doing, where we were doing all these COVID collaboration jams like you saw people doing during the pandemic. And
yeah.
The guy I was working on these videos with was able to get Steve Lynch from Autograph to make a cameo in the video that we did of Turn Up the Radio, and I played the guitar solo and everything. Ryan Roxy did the whole, video introduction to it, and they had Rudy Sarzo's brother, Robert Sarzo, in it at, certain points as well. So that's how I, had the association there with Ryan and was going to be able to, get there and meet with Ryan and hopefully Alice and Ace and all those guys. And then the COVID thing just screwed it all up.
I met Ace at the Chiller convention.
Yeah.
He seemed like he was a pretty cool guy. I didn't really have a chance to talk to him for too long, but he seemed like a cool guy. I've seen Alice Cooper in concert. Never had a chance to meet him though. But actually,
dude, he was awesome in concert.
Yeah, he is. Like I've seen him several times at the Oakdale in the later years. So I never saw him back in the 70s or 80s, but he still puts on a great show.
Oh yeah, we got to see Alice's set, and he's got Nita Strauss with him now too on guitar. I didn't know any of the songs. I think the only Alice song I knew was School's Out, and then I'm 18.
Yep.
I was listening to all his other stuff, and I'm like, holy shit, it's like Meatloaf kind of music with Jim Steinman, Bat Out of Hell kind of stuff.
You know what reminds me of that? Only one of my favorite songs from him is Only Women Bleed. I love that song. And that definitely is it reminds me of sort of the Jim Steinman stuff.
Yeah.
He has a lot of great songs. I've always been a fan of him, and I just love the fact, as we talked about before, is that people can come out on stage and just play the music. If I want to hear the music, I can put on a CD. Now I can stream it, but I like to see a show. And then Alice Cooper, Dio is another one. I used to see Dio in the 80s. He put on such an elaborate stage show with the dragons and everything. Sacred Heart Tour.
Yep.
Last in Line. I've seen all of those. And
wow, that's cool.
Let me ask you a question, because we were talking about Black Sabbath, and you mentioned 3 of their singers. Ian Gillan for one album, which was really supposed to be a Tony Iommi solo album, but there was some issues with that, so they made it Black Sabbath. Ryan James Dio or Ozzy? Who's your favorite singer for Black Sabbath?
Black Sabbath?
Yeah, I love the Born Again album, even though it wasn't supposed to be a Black Sabbath album. I
mean, I would axe out Ian just because I don't associate Ian with Sabbath. Everyone knows Ian as the voice of Deep Purple.
Yeah.
So it's mostly down to Ronnie and Ozzy for me. And I'm gonna go with Ozzy because I mean I mostly listen to the Ozzy era Sabbath stuff, like everything off of everything off of like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. That's like my favorite Sabbath album is Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. And then stuff from Volume 4, Masters of Reality, Paranoid, the self-titled record. Those first 5 albums of Sabbath, they're just amazing.
Which I agree with. I love the Dio stuff too. I love Neon Nights, Children of the Sea,
Mob Rules, Heaven and Hell.
Yeah, I love that. I've seen them. I've seen Sabbath with Dio. I never saw them with Ozzy.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I never saw them with Ozzy, but I mean, obviously, Ozzy, they have the classic songs, Paranoid, Iron Man. I mean, the list goes on. Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. The list goes on. So yeah, I love, for all the singers they've had, Glenn Hughes later on, because I've seen Sabbath with Glenn Hughes, but I love those, Ronnie and Ozzy the best. And I'll give a little nod because I agree with you. It's Deep Purple is Ian Gillan. Ian Gillan is Deep Purple, but it's just what happened was it was Don Arden, Sharon's Osbourne's father, who said, "No, I don't care. You're under contract," because they were in a big war with Ozzy. And they're like, nope. But Sharon took off, was in control of Ozzy, and he goes, nope, we're putting out Black Sabbath up. I don't really care what you say. This is not a solo album, because he was competition with his own daughter. And that's what happened with that. And then they started playing Smoke on the Water, and people are saying, this is not Sabbath. Because I saw a whole documentary on just the Ian Gillan year. So like the two,
really?
Yeah. And it's all about the Born Again album, and they were talking about that.
Wow, that's funny.
This is interesting. I heard you mention this, and I want you to tell my viewers this, because I loved your answer. You played with Ace, but he is not your favorite Kiss guitarist.
Yeah, no.
Who is?
I think most of your fan base is gonna want to lynch me for the answer, but I know Kenny would.
Kenny, please turn it off right now. Come back in 10 minutes.
Oh, and I have his posters on my wall along with Randy's right in front of me, but it's Mr. Vinnie Vincent from Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Yep. You know what? I like Vinnie Vincent. I love the Vinnie Vincent Invasion. I love the Lick It Up album. I love Creatures of the Night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he had some great songs. And what
The
you
guy
said,
knew how to write a song. He knew how to craft a really good song.
and another reason I like, because you brought this up, and I'm going to give you credit for this, because I never even thought of that. He is the only other Kiss member to have his own makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody else has had that.
Yeah,
Now
besides him and Eric Carr.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
out of the original four, he's the only other guitar player to have his own makeup.
Yeah. Now you know what? I heard that answer. I said, I think he's right. He had some great music.
Yeah, I know. He had that awesome makeup. And then, I mean, you listen to songs off of Lick It Up like Exciter and freaking, then off of Creatures of the Night, the song Creatures,
Yes.
the title. And then,
Great
you
album.
know, War Machine and all the songs that Vinny helped write. It's like the dude knew how to write a song.
Yeah.
And that was at a time where Kiss was struggling to sell records and, you know, and fill arenas. You know, the Creatures tour, they like were struggling just to even fill a theater.
Yeah. No, when you said that, I thought about it, and I agree with him. I said Vinnie
Yeah.
Vincent was a great guitar player, still is. I'm not sure what's going on with him now, but
He's supposed to be playing at Creatures Fest in a couple months along with Ace Frehley.
oh wow.
Yeah,
That's
they're
good.
doing, yeah, if you look up Creatures Fest on Facebook, he's supposed to be doing a night of the Creatures album in his makeup and stuff. And then there's the next night Ace is playing.
Okay. No.
Yeah.
I want to go back to 2018. You, Lionel Richie, Katy Perry, American Idol.
Oh. Oh, now the Sacred Oath fans are gonna be like, that's not metal. Why is he in Sacred Oath?
The next interview is like, so Damiano, why are you not in Sacred Oath anymore?
Yeah. Yeah. This thing called American Idol got me kicked out of all my bands. Because not metal. Oh. No, I'm glad I did it. It was a great eye opener though.
Yeah.
Into seeing how fame really works and the reality of it and how staged it all really was. Everything you see on television, Rich, is a lie. It's all staged.
I was going to ask you about that, because I don't know if you know, I used to do stand-up comedy for a while. And a friend of mine, a friend of mine was on America's Got Talent. And I know this kid. You know how they show the videos, sort of like what they did with you. Because I saw your video, and they showed him this. I said, first of all, that's his girlfriend's house. Those are not his parents. Those are his girlfriend's parents. He doesn't even own a car, and they're making him seem to be something that he's completely not. And I could tell when he said it, some of the banter back and forth, I could tell was scripted. I'm not sure if it was like that with American Idol with you, but he was on the show, and I could see that he definitely would never say that. And you could tell it was scripted. And then they do a cutaway to, I think wasn't even when he was there. It's just, I noticed how fake it really was.
I mean, I watched parts of it, and I'm like, the parts that they were showing of like when they were interviewing me, I'm like, they didn't even show my whole friggin' answer, and we're showing clips and little snippets of what my answer was, and I'm like, that's not actually what my answer was. They kind of just freaking spliced it and chopped it together, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, I know I didn't actually say that.
Yeah. Well, you know what was the song you played?
Oh, that was a catastrophe. Regarding the
I'm
song.
sorry to be bringing you down this road.
No, it's fine, because I had a song picked out, and they're the ones that screwed it all up, because they kept telling me they couldn't get the rights to use the song. Apparently, when you do more than 45 seconds of a song on television, they got to pay the artist the royalties for it.
Really?
So I was doing Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue, and this was at a time where there was the rumor going around that Nikki Sixx was going to be one of the judges for American Idol before they had, announced who was actually judging it.
Yeah.
And the song had gotten me through the first 2 rounds of the audition. They don't just throw you up on TV. I had to go to a casting call in Boston 3 months prior to what you saw on television.
Yeah.
Where I sat there in a line with thousands of people trying to audition, where you had producers, Rich, in a line of 3 under a tent, each of them, you had 3 tents, and then they would line people up in lines of 3, by, rows of, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then each line would go up to that producer and only get to sing like, I don't know, 30 seconds. And then they would either tell you yes or no. And then you would move to the next round, which would be auditioning for an executive producer the following week, where they wanted all of you to fly out to Chicago and pay for your own expenses and travel. I'm like, you kidding me? And you want me to be in Chicago in 3 days? Mind you, they wanted me to be there in 3 days. It was the following Monday. They wanted us to be there. So yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like it was a good
There's
time.
a whole other side. Yeah, there's a whole other side to it that people don't see. So people don't realize it's there. And that's the shitty side of it.
Yeah. Well, no, I was gonna say, because not only with America's Got Talent, I was in Nashville and I went to the Civil War Museum. I forgot where I was, but I was talking to a guy and they wanted him to be on Antiques Roadshow. And the reason he said no is because they were going to give him all the antiques. So when they walk in, oh, I'd like to see this. He goes, I'm not going to be phony. I don't sell that. I don't want that in my store. He goes, yeah, but we don't want to put any of this on the TV show. He goes, well, then I don't want to be on your show.
Yeah.
So it's just, when people think that reality TV is reality, it's anything but reality. And you're probably the 3rd or 4th person that has been involved in it that told me exactly the same thing for 3 different shows. So it's just
I almost wish they would ban reality TV from television.
Oh, please. We know it's funny. I had another guest on and I found out why reality TV started. There was a TV strike, I want to say 1999 or 2000. So they said, well, we don't know what we're gonna do. And they put out Survivor. And that show became such a big hit. And they said it was so cheap to make when the writer's strike ended. They said, well, we'll just keep doing shows like this. They make a lot of money. It costs hardly anything. And unfortunately, it took off, because I agree with you. I hate reality shows. And I don't think they have a place anywhere in entertainment. And that's just my opinion.
Now you see how much they've screwed up society nowadays.
Yeah.
And the influence and impact it's had on the way people think nowadays. You notice how, not to insult anyone's age here, but people my parents' age were always saying, oh, it's not like how it was when we were kids.
Oh, yeah.
It's all these freaking reality TV shows that have now planted in people's minds. This is what modern day society is, just a bunch of brainless people on cell phones.
Yeah. Well, I get mad when people say, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? An influencer. No. Nobody wants, they just want to be somebody that goes on Instagram, somebody goes on Facebook and say, no, what do you want to?
And you could thank the Kardashians for that, because now reality TV has made people think you can be like the Kardashians and just live off of posting on social media and then get a freaking makeup line and make millions of whatever. Little do they realize they got all their money from their deceased father who did the O.J. Simpson case.
Oh, yeah. No, there's people just see, as we talked about, little clips here and there, and they think that that's what life is really like.
Yeah.
No, it's nothing like that. One thing I want to talk about, there's 2 things about American Idol I want to talk about. Was one, I did not agree with what they told you. So what did the judges say to you when I don't know how edited it was. Now that I'm talking to you, they probably said a lot more, but I'll refresh your memory. They were saying that if you want to stay relevant, if you want to you shouldn't be playing songs. You did Boston More Than a Feeling. That's what you end up doing. And I disagree. And they're like, you got to find yourself. First of all, I mean, you're doing the same thing right now. You know exactly who you are. You know exactly what you want to play. Just because you're playing a song from the 70s doesn't mean that you're out of touch. I think you're more in touch with these people that are playing the newer music or just trying to jump on the bandwagon. You know what you like and you're good at it, and you're not going to tell anybody, or nobody's going to tell you, no, don't play that. That's not relevant anymore. So was that really what they said, or was that edited as well?
Well, I'm glad you refreshed me on what they said, because I never watched my audition that they actually aired on television.
You never even heard that.
I never watched it. Because I knew what they were gonna put on television was gonna be farly spun from the truth of what actually happened, and I didn't want to see what they were going to put on television about me like that. So I was like, you know what? I know what happened. I don't want to see what they are going to tell people happened. So as long as I know what happened, that's all I freaking care about. But yeah, that is what they said. It doesn't sound like it was edited, that portion of it. Okay. A lot of it was them telling me that, okay, you're playing a genre of music that's heavily outdated according to them, a music genre that's apparently very limited according to them. But then you look at their panel there, Lionel Richie only does R&B and can't do any other genre of music if he tried. You don't see him doing country records. You don't see him doing rock records. You don't see him doing pop records. He's known for All Night Long and all the shit he did with the Commodores. Yeah. So, and then you got Luke Bryan there, who only does country. Nothing. He can't. You don't see him doing R&B. You don't see him doing rock and roll or metal or pop like Katy Perry. He only does country. So I never understood their whole thing of that I was limiting myself by playing rock music and locking myself in a time capsule, like they said.
Sometimes I think they just like to hear themselves talk, and I'll tell you what I mean. The original American Idol, which was Simon Cowell, Paula Abdul, and Randy Jackson, they were on the Howard Stern show. I can't remember who it was, but there was somebody that won a Grammy the night before for a song. And he was on the show, and they said he was wearing a hat, glasses, he was in disguise. And they said, and Howard said, all right, well, judge this guy, see what you think of him. So he sang his song, the one he won a Grammy for the night before, and like, yeah, we really don't see that. It's going to be years before you're any good. You just don't really have that. And he's laughing. He takes off his hat and he goes, I'm the guy that wrote this song. I just won last night. I can't believe you didn't recognize me. But yeah, sometimes they just say things for TV. I don't even think they really believe what they're saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. A lot of it is just to get the best reaction out of the viewer. Exactly. It's all about shock value, which I learned when I saw that movie, The Dirt, and how Motley Crue got so successful. It was all of their shock value and all the shit they did when they weren't on stage that created that shock value for them.
I saw them originally on the Shout at the Devil tour when they opened up for Ozzy in the 80s. So I remember, back then I was in 7th and 8th grade, and I love the songs. For me, I think their first album was the best. I love that album, Live Wire, Merry Go Round and Round. But all I really knew was like, oh yeah, man, they're trashing hotels. They're getting arrested for this. They were more known for what they did off stage than on stage.
Exactly.
Yeah. But there was one interesting story regarding American Idol, and it was the jacket. Tell me the story with that jacket.
So that's from the Moscow Music Peace Festival that, Motley Crue manager Doc McGee put together in order to get out of having to serve time for getting busted selling drugs in the United States. Do you know the whole story regarding that festival and how it was put together?
I know bits and pieces of it, but probably not as much as you do.
Well, I found it out because I was trying to figure out where the jacket came into play. And come to find out, it was like a commemorative piece that they only gave out to the bands. So only the band members got a jacket like that. It wasn't sold as like merchandise to the public at the event. So there's actually pictures. I'm sure you know who Mark Weiss is, the famous photographer. He went on that whole airplane trip with them and photographed that show. There's photos of the band, certain band members from those bands that did the show wearing their jacket with the same flags on it that mine had. So you had bands like Skid Row, Cinderella, Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, Ozzy with Zakk Wylde, the Scorpions, Gorky Park from Russia, and a bunch of others that they each got their individual jacket. Now, yeah, the whole thing was put together as like, commemorating the fall of, the Soviet Union, the Berlin Wall, but they also wanted to promote anti-drug use in Russia. And here you got Doc McGee spearheading the whole festival with a bunch of bands that are coming in on a plane all drugged up on who knows what, doing the complete opposite of what the cause they're playing for is about. Yeah. And the whole reason it was put together is because Doc McGee was smuggling in drugs to the United States and wanted to serve a lesser sentence. So he's like, you know what? I'll do something that will impact the community in a good way. And he puts together this festival in Moscow, and all the money proceeds go towards, anti-drug charities across the United States.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. If you read the whole story on the way it was put together, it's really ironic.
I gotta check that out. So I heard bits and pieces, but I did not know that.
Yeah, so that's the whole story about the jacket. So it was my dad's that he picked up somewhere when he lived in California before I was born.
Okay. No. All right. I mentioned it earlier. I said, well, so far now I have two guests that you know or played with. One was Mike Z. The other one is Carmine Apiece. Yeah, where did you meet him and when did you play with him?
So I played with Carmine at the school I teach at, Rock House School of Music. He's actually an ambassador for my boss's nonprofit called Teach Kids Music, which is a foundation that we have at the school where we like to take in donated instruments and then give them back to kids in need in the community who are taking music lessons but can't afford to go out and purchase an instrument, or get one of these things. So he came out to our grand opening of our Wallingford branch school. We have a school in West Haven, and about 2 years ago, the summer before the pandemic, we opened our Wallingford one. And Carmine came to the grand opening and he spoke at it. He also, had one of his bands he was producing, which were a bunch of young guys doing an 80s original thing called, I think, Kaleidoscope from either New York or New Jersey. He had them come play. And then he played with me and a couple of the other teachers from the school. We did Bark at the Moon. And I was like, let's do that, because he actually played it on the tour with Ozzy for, when they got rid of Tommy Aldridge for that brief bit of the tour. So I was like, he's got to know the song. He's played it before. So the whole videos, I don't know. Did you see the video on YouTube?
That one I haven't seen.
Dude, the whole video of me playing with Carmine is on YouTube. If you look up
check
Carmine, yeah, it's on YouTube, and he was a lot of fun to play with. I never told him this though, but he threw me for a loop in the middle of the song, because I don't know if you know, after the main guitar solo where it goes back to the main riff, and it's just the guitar. He started doing this weird off time, out of beat, like drum jazz solo. And I looked back and I'm like, okay, I've never heard that in the song before. I don't know if he's doing that on purpose to like try and throw me off and
Yeah.
see if I'm paying attention, or if he just used to do that live with Ozzy and just, So the whole time I'm telling myself, man, you know what, just keep counting the 4 like you're playing the song and you'll stay in time with him. And I ended up staying in time with him. But I'm like, just thinking in my head, I'm like, dude, why would you almost threw me off there.
It might have been that he played it like that, or it just,
Yeah.
I could picture him having that type of sense of humor too. It's just, let me just mess with him a little bit. Come on,
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to just keep counting 4. And I stayed in time. And at the end of the song, I turn around and he stands up and he gives the thumbs up to me. He just stood up and gave me a thumbs up. And I was like, cool.
I've seen him. He has a spoken word thing he did for a while. It was at the Warner Theater. I saw him there, and that's where I met him and asked him to be on the show. He was a great guy. Like, he was an interesting guest, and he was
I
the
didn't
one.
know that.
Yeah, he was on this. He's the one I was telling you about that was really unhappy with Sharon. He told me a lot of stories. We talked about that. We talked about the Bark at the Moon tour and how he was on there and what Sharon did to him.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. She cut the heads off all his shirts. And,
yep, we get into that. So it's just, he was not the happiest of campers with that tour, but I mean, he's done everything. He's done, Rod Stewart, Do You Think I'm Sexy, and all the Vanilla Fudge. And I know what I like the best of
John Sykes.
Yes, yep. And Cobra. I think it was Cobra, yeah. But there was I like when he does the drum wars with his brother, Vinny Appice.
Yeah, with Vinny. They came to Milford a couple times here.
Yeah.
And they also came to the Chaz and AJ toy drive that the school I work for, we play at that every December over at Jordan's Furniture. They had Carmine and Vinny come and do an appearance at it. I think the first or second year that my school had our students play it at the event.
You have a chance to check it out?
Yeah, they was really good. I really liked seeing the two of them play together, and then I saw them at NAMM that following year. So
when I interviewed him, they were doing a song. They were paying homage to Dio, because it was this, I forgot what year, 10th year anniversary of Dio's death, and they did a song, and it was all through Zoom. So Vinny was on one, so it was sort of like this, Vinny was on one block, Carmine was in another, and they had a singer, and they did a song they wrote dedicated to Ronnie James. Yeah. So
yeah, that's cool.
So for my viewers, if you don't remember, it was last May. We had the video on there. It's a really good interview. But speaking of YouTube, because we talked about your YouTube channel, it's Damiano Christian. You got to check it out. You have so many videos on there. But I got to say, I mean, your YouTube channel, the songs you perform range from Night Ranger, Bon Jovi, Liberace, Deep Purple, Ozzy, Sacred Oath. But there's two of my favorites. One, I think, has to be the John Williams version of Star Wars theme that you do. I love that version.
Thank you.
No, I really do. And this threw me off. And I think now, I when I watched the video, what I'm going to talk about next, I said, is that him? And now I think it probably is the video for She Loves You, the Beatles song. And I said, that looks like Mike Z.
Yeah, that was Mike. That was Mike in the beginning, as dressed up with the cigar and the hat and everything.
Stick with me, kid. You're going places. And I said, that's gotta be Mike Z.
That was Mike. Yep. He was supposed to be like that sleazy kind of producer. I'll give you the world type and then we blasted into the song.
I love that version of the songs. I love the Beatles, as I mentioned before. But the question is how do you get the rights to these songs? Because I'm sure the Beatles and Disney can't be cheap with Star Wars.
Okay. So with the Beatles one, you can get what's called a mechanical license, where they take care of paying the artist their percentage. Come to find out, the Beatles actually didn't even own the rights to the song.
Was that at the time when Michael Jackson had the rights?
No, so it was when Michael Jackson sold the rights, and these 3 guys bought the rights.
Oh, okay.
To all the music.
That's so sad.
So they were like, yeah, we don't care. So
I love it. That's perfect timing.
You just get the mechanical license through like DistroKid or something like that, and then they take care of all of that stuff for you. The Star Wars thing, because I just put my own spin on it. I'm not making any money off of it. I'm just doing like a, here's Star Wars May, 4th of July, 4th be
Yeah,
with
yeah.
you or whatever. So I don't have to worry about that with the Star Wars stuff. But when I'm doing like releasing a song on a record, then yeah, you got to get what's called that mechanical license for putting a cover on an album.
Oh, so, now I know. Learned something new today.
Yeah.
Damiano, it was great having you on the show. I could talk for hours with you. There's so
Yeah.
many interesting stories you have, and I will definitely be checking you out. Your band with Jimmy Bell this Saturday coming up. The show's going to be airing after the show, so it'll be past. Check out his website. Actually, let's promote you now. So where can people find you, and what's next?
So you can find me on Facebook at Damiano Christian. Same with YouTube and Instagram. With Instagram, it's at Damiano_Christian. Make sure to check out my band's Sacred Oath with our new record, Return of the Dragon, and my other new original band called Elm City Heartbreakers, and then my tribute bands Ozzmosis and my Def Leppard one, which I'll be coming out with a new one in a couple months. And that's where you can find me on the internet. You can also find me at Rock House School of Music if you're ever looking for guitar or piano lessons in the Wallingford or West Haven area of Connecticut. Also available for Skype lessons.
All right. Well, actually, I have one last question because I'm listening to all the bands you're in, everything you do. How can you make sure that like you're playing with one band and you're like, no, but we have a gig with this band, but wait, this band wants to play that same night. You must have so many complications of trying to keep everything together and make sure the three bands aren't booked all at the same time.
This thing is my best friend. It's called a calendar. And I hate when I play in bands with people that don't use them. Because it's like, dude, just look at the damn calendar and everything will be smooth sailing.
Yeah, I always forget life could just be so simple. Buy a calendar.
But what's funny is I don't play, every weekend with a tribute band, because that's the whole good thing about playing with a tribute band is that you want to play scarcely and spread out so people come to see your tribute band. If you play every weekend like all the other cover bands, your tribute band's gonna get, people are gonna just get bored coming to see you every damn week. So I'm able to, fill up my weekends with a different band, and they never seem to collide that often at all.
Well, I like what you do also is that you have your original band open up for the tribute band, so you have a chance to play both bands, and people that want to see the tribute band are going to come like, oh wow, these guys are really good too, I'm going to check them out, which is very similar to what I'm doing.
That was the other thing too. I got so many people asking me, where's your original stuff? I see you play all these covers, but I don't see you do any, I want to hear you play your own stuff. So I'm like, you know what, why don't I just give them what they're asking for and have my original band open for the damn tribute band? That way people can now say they've heard my original stuff, and then hopefully they want to go on the internet and purchase it so they have it on their devices and everything, for their own purposes.
Damiano, once again, I'm so glad I had a chance to have you on the show. I know last time on the show we didn't really get a chance to talk too much, but before I leave, is there anything else you want to add?
Definitely, yeah. If anyone wants to come see me perform, we have this Saturday at Elm City Heartbreakers opening up for Jimmy Bell and Beyond Purple at Mags in Seymour, Connecticut. And then we will also be at Crystal Bees on March 19th in Southington, opening up for Joe Town, which is Joe Delaney's band.
Okay.
And then we will be at Crystal Bees again, April 22nd, opening for Opus's band, the Black Sabbath tribute, Earth, with Jesse.
Another former guest of the Claus Corner.
Yeah, so that's what's coming up for the next couple months. And then I know I've got the new Ozzy tribute booked at Crystal Bees for July 9th. I
love that place. It was funny because during COVID, the whole summer they had shows in the parking lot. I went to a concert every single weekend. That summer was great. People were saying, "Oh my God, I haven't been to a show. I haven't been anywhere." The whole summer I was busy because everything was outside. The weather, for the most part, it didn't rain that much. So I was seeing, and it was all these tribute bands. They had a Van Halen tribute band. They had a Blondie tribute band. And so I love that place. And the inside is really good too. They have the bowling alley and other games, but they have that little area where all the bands play. And I have to say, what? Go ahead.
I was gonna say we might be getting a Sacred Oath gig there. Rob and Kenny and I have been tossing it around, and I think he reached out to the guy today about it. So
yeah, no, I mean they will definitely pack the place, and that's why I wanted to tell you this, because you ruined Crystal Bees for me and my girlfriend. I'll tell you why. We went to Crystal Bees, and a lot of times we get there late. There'd be 4 or 5 people in there, just get a seat, sit down. I said, "Oh, we got to check out Damiano's band." She and I get there. The place is jam-packed. Can't find a table anywhere. I'm sitting in. I said, so now every time we go to Crystal Beach, she's so worried because of after you that she has to reserve a table for $50. I said, we don't have to reserve a table. It's not going to be like that every time. Every time we went there after you, it's empty.
Wow. Well, dude, all you got to do is get the $20 general admission tickets, and I know you're going to stand up at the front of the stage anyways.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. She's more the one that's worried about it. For me, I said, don't spend the money. I said, we'll get inside. And like you said, I'd rather be up front anyway. But it was funny because ever since we saw you play, she gets so paranoid. Oh, no, we got to get tickets ahead of. No, we don't. I said, Damiano is the master of promotion. So I said, not every other band is like that.
Well, that's the thing. You got to know how to promote your brand and get people out there. I mean, when we were starting to plug the new Sacred Oath album, I was offering to go to meet people to, so they could give me the money for their album, and then I would sign it for them and take a photo with them.
Yeah.
I started doing.
I was gonna say, even at the show that I saw you at Crystal Bees, you were the only one that was at the end of the show talking to people, hanging out with people. The rest of the band was long gone, or maybe they were in the back, but you were still there. It was like maybe 20 minutes later, and that's when I said, "Hey, I'd love to have you on the show." And you're like, "Definitely, let's do this." So I'm just like you. I was in bands. I've done stand-up comedy and motivational speaking. I wrote a book, so I'm good at promoting myself too, and I know that that's a completely different animal. You have to have the talent, but in order to get the people there, you have to be the master of marketing, and a lot of people don't want to do that. I love promoting. I think it's so much fun to get, and a lot of people say, "Oh, can you teach me how to do that? I don't like to talk about myself." You have to learn to talk about yourself and let people know, if you miss this show, you're going to regret it. You have to be there. It's going to be the best show of the year. And so many people get that. I know, like when I was doing comedy and other things, "Oh, I don't know, I can't talk like that." I said, well, you're not going to get people to come to your shows. But, yeah. Anyway, on that note, it was great having you, and please come back anytime. And I'm definitely going to see you this Saturday, and I'll be seeing you all the time at Crystal Bees.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're very welcome. That wraps up the latest episode of The Claw's Corner. A tremendous thank you goes out to guitarist, singer, pianist, and child prodigy, Damiano Christian. I would also like to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in every week. Enjoy your day, everyone.
Now available in one collection. Confessions of a Frenetic Mind. 5 tales of blood-curdling terror. Available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
All of a sudden I hear, "Brim, brim." What's a diaphragm again? We caught one.
They're supposed to be weird.
Oh, yeah, no. If you say so.
I've always wanted to be in a movie.